Murders at Karlov Manor has had its debut with a debut stream where they revealed shit tons of stuff, including core mechanics, loads of legendaries, a new land cycle. In this video, I'm going to go through the majority of the previews and the things that I thought were exciting and interesting, and talk about my general feelings about the set. If you want to hear in-depth talks of crime novelist or the land base, there'll be videos for those on the channel that should go up around this one. So they'll be linked in the description or the cards. You click the little eye in the top right hand corner. This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, so use the link in the description below or the code Kenobi at checkout to get 5% off your order. And if you're ordering anything, singles or sealed product from Murders at Karlov Manor from Cool Stuff, you'll get this token, this Orc Army token, which features me and my dog fighting back the forces of darkness. Kaya Spirit's Justice is a 4-mana, 3-starting loyalty planeswalker with a novel of text. Whenever one or more creatures you control and or creature cards in your graveyard are put into exile, you may choose a creature card from among them. To end of turn, target token you control becomes a copy of it, except it has flying. So in essence, you get to change one of your tokens into a creature that you are going to exile from your board or your graveyard. And she enables that through, well, multiple ways in her kit. Her uptick, which is 2+ law to go into 5, is fail to then exile a card from a graveyard. This allows you to essentially filter your draws and also get rid of a thing from your graveyard to enable one of your tokens to become a creature, one of your creatures. Her +1 put her as a 4 loyalty gives you a body that can then block and protect her, so that's a reasonable spot to be in. And her -2 is a parallel removal spell, where you get to remove a creature you control from your board by exiling it, and thus turning one of your tokens into that creature until end of turn, but also having flying, and also exile up to one target creature for each other player. So it's better in Commander, and then in 1v1 it still gets rid of one of their creatures. It's a come down and immediately remove their best card, whilst turning any of your tokens into a card on your side of the board. Now, bearing in mind it doesn't say that it must be a token creature, it can turn any token into this creature that you exile, and thus you can turn clue tokens into big old fatties. I think that's purposeful synergy with the fact that there's a load of clue generation in the set and investigates a core mechanic of the set. In addition to that, you are looking to flicker things as one of the ways to enable this. You don't have to just remove your stuff with exile effects or exile things in the graveyard. If, for example, Ephemerate or Restoration Angel will allow you to keep your creature around, flickering it out so it's exiled, and then turning all your tokens into that thing. Imagine flickering a Sun Titan to re-trigger its enter the battlefield effect, and then turning one of your 1/1 tokens that's not summoned to into a Sun Titan to attack as well. The value would be huge. I love flickering shit, and Kaya is awesome. I've already got a home for her. She's going into Black-White Abdo Adrian. A Killer Among Us is a 5-mana green enchantment. When a Killer Among Us enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human creature token with a 1/1 blue merfolk creature token and a 1/1 goblin creature token. Then secretly choose human, merfolk, or goblin. Then at any point you can sacrifice the Killer is Among Us to reveal the chosen type. If target attacking creature token is the chosen type, you get to put 3+1/+1 counters on and it gains Death Touch. So this card is wild in terms of what it's doing with its mechanics. It's, you know, playing on that motif that someone is the unsuspected murderer and we don't know who it is, one of the 3 characters on the card. You're making 3 characters with it. Like, flavorfully, it's fucking awesome. People are claiming that's a bit of an Among Us reference with one of the creatures being sus, but I mean, it's a murder mystery story, so there's going to be motifs like that within it. Mechanically, it is 5 mana, so it definitely feels like a limited card to me. Making 3 bodies for 5 mana is not something I'm going to do in most constructed formats, but it's cool that the suspected killer gains Death Touch when you sacrifice this, because it means A, your opponent doesn't want to block any of your creatures because it's scared which one is the killer, and B, it means that the killer is going to kill something. Wonderful card. Longer By is a 2-mana. This spell can't be countered. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less, instant speed, a kill spell that can't be countered that kills most bodies. This will see some play in some Eternal formats, I think. Like Timeless on Arena right now, killing like Ragavans and Delvers and Deathrite Shamans and similar with this thing is going to be sweet when it cannot be countered by Spell Pierce. Axebane Ferox is a 4-mana 4/4 with Death Touch and Haste. Yep, we're in that hasty 4/4 for 4 category that they love to do for green. And it has Ward, Collect Evidence 4. So Ward says if you want to target this with a spell, the spell is countered unless you meet a condition. The condition is to collect evidence 4, which is a new mechanic. Whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter it unless that player exiles cards with total mana value 4 or greater from their graveyard. In essence, collect evidence is asking you to exile cards from your graveyard, but it's asking you to exile a collected CMC, and thus it cannot be enabled by fetch lands, something that they've seen in the past enable delve spells. I think this is an interesting place to be. I think this Ward ability is very good. I mean, this creature's rather vanilla, but being very hard to kill early on if you're playing this on turn 3 off of a green mana dork might make it strong in standard. No Witness is a 4-mana Wrath. It says each player who controls the most creatures investigates, so they get to make 1 singular clue, then destroy all creatures. This Wrath is so fucking good. A 4-mana Wrath is a rarity in Magic these days. You're normally playing 4 mana to get a conditional Wrath. You're playing 5 mana for less of a conditional Wrath. This is Wrath of God, but the player with the most creatures gets a clue, which in constructed formats means that you are normally playing this against decks that are playing a lot of creatures against you, so you can fire this off and they get to be able to draw a card off of it on a delayed trigger. Essentially, they have to pay 2 mana and draw off the clue. This is very, very strong. 4 mana wraths are great. I think this is a reasonable commander card, and I think again, some constructed formats are going to want this as a 4 mana wrath because the 5 mana wraths just push you a little bit too far. It's probably not playable in any format where Supreme Verdict is in the format, and obviously Wrath of God is better than this too, but Supreme Verdict does cost you double blue, where No Witness does not, so it's still playable in your non-blue control or mid-range decks that need a sweep in their sideboard. Kellan hasn't had an English reveal yet, so here's a Chinese one, I believe. Flying Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an instant card, sorcery card, or a creature card with flying. It's got an interesting frantic search effect attached to it for 3 mana 2/2 flyer with Vigilance, so this is quite a pushed card. Not very exciting, but it's at rare. The cool thing about it though is that it's a weird detective, and here we see some sort of elemental cloud electrical creature wearing a fedora. Aurelia's Vindicator is a 4 mana 4/2 flying, lifelink, ward 2. Jesus Christ, this is so much text. Is this the new questing beast? And then Disguise, and this Disguise cost is 4x. And when Vindicators turn up, face up, you exile X target creatures from the battlefield and or creatures from graveyards, and when it leaves the battlefield, those exile cards are returned to players' hands, which is a reference to the old Angel of Serenity, another Ravnica angel that did a similar effect. Disguise is essentially Morph, but the Morph has Ward. You pay 3 mana to make a 2/2 similar to Morph, but that 2/2 has a ward of 2, and then you turn it face up for its disguise cost. In this case, the disguise cost actually reduces the white mana needed to cast it, making it kind of better in a way, and you can just flip it up from a 2 into this version of itself, which still has ward 2, flying and lifelink, so you can get some sort of like surprise stuff out of it, but any extra mana you dump into it can temporarily remove creatures from your opponent's board or graveyard. Don't forget also it can exile cards from your graveyard that will be returned to your hand when it dies, so it's also a recursion spell. This card is fucking sick. Homicide Investigator is a 2 mana 2/2 in black. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control dies, investigate, which is make a clue, and it can only trigger once each turn. And they've got a little bit careful on this because this kind of effect could be absolutely nuts if not restricted. I think this card is still strong though, and we'll see playing sort of like aristocrat decks in formats like Historic Brawl and Commander. Taster Opulent Oligarch is a 3 mana 2/3 human advisor legendary Death Touch. At the beginning of your end step, investigate for each opponent who lost life this turn, so it's better in Commander. Whenever a clue you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token in the flying. This spirit triggers only once each turn, but that's each of any player's turns. So the idea is, I think that you're going to be paying mana to crack your clues in other people's turns to generate 1/1s, and then those 1/1s are going to fly out and gather you some clues. Flavorful, thematic, interesting, not all that powerful. I'm not really rushing to play with this, but I think the card is probably going to be very strong and limited and similar. Well, most of the cards I'm talking about will be strong and limited. I don't know. I don't think it's that good of a commander card, but I do like the flavor. Tolsimir is back, the Midnight's Light at 5 mana, green, white, white, and 2 for a 3/2 elf scout with lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, create a 5/5 green and white creature token with trample. That's right, you get 8 power and 7 toughness for a low cost of 5 mana. And whenever a wolf you control attacks, if Tolsimir attack this combat, target creature an opponent controls blocks that wolf is combat available. So the wolf can distract someone to let Tolsimir get through and get you some life as well. Strong 5-drop, not an exciting commander though in my opinion. Tomik, Wielder of the Law is a 3 mana 2/4 legendary creature human advisor, had affinity for planeswalkers, which reduces its cost for the number of planeswalkers you have in play, which can only reduce its cost by 1, interestingly. However, that is a thematic point because Tomik is Ral Zarek's lover. They are in a relationship, so he has eyes for only 1 planeswalker. It works, I like it. He's flying on top of a gargoyle now, so he's got flying, he's vigilant. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or planeswalkers you control, that opponent loses 3 life and you draw a card. Strong commander rattlesnake thing, and also pretty decent 1v1 if someone's trying to slam at you with a couple of creatures, and you just get to draw cards and ping them in the face, bolt them in the face even, not even pinging. This card is way stronger than the Orzhov guild leader Taser. Tristani, 3 Whispers, is 3 mana, it's a green, a white, and a green or a white for a 4/4 with 3 abilities. She's basically a super guild mage from the old Ravnica sets. 2 mana, target creature gains Death Touch, 1 mana, target creature gains Vigilance until end of turn, and 3 mana, target creature gains Double Strike until end of turn. Very relevant abilities, probably going to be a house in some sort of constructed format somewhere, standard perhaps, but again, not the most exciting commander, though I will jam this in limited. Voja, Jaws of the Conclave, is a 5 mana, Nyrin 2 wolf, a 5/5. This is the wolf for Tolsimir, so we've got 2 of these wolves in this set. One is a token, one is a creature. This one has Vigilance, Trample, and Ward 3. That's right, it's got 1,000 fucking words on it already. Whenever Volger, Jaws of the Conclave attacks, put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is the number of elves you control. Draw a card for each wolf you control. This card is fucking nuts. It's Vigilant, it's Trample, it's a 5/5 for 5 that has Ward 3, making it hard to fucking kill anyway. And then it puts X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Not just elves, by the way, where X is the number of elves you control. So just having one mana dork in play means when he attacks, he pumps your entire team and then draws you a card for each wolf you control, which in the case of just him is 1. This is a really interesting like duo commander in terms of like creature type synergies. So you can play wolf elves, although I just play him as an elf commander and get access to white, red, and green in my new elf deck, to be fair. And then we get to the new land cycle. These are going to get a whole video talking about them in detail, but essentially we're getting land types, so they are fetchable. Enter the battlefield tapped lands that surveil 1. So instead of scrying up the scry temples from Theros, they instead let you look at the top card of your library, put it into your graveyard, or put it on top of your library, which is a great thematic thing. Surveil is great for the idea that people are being watched as part of the detective investigation, but the fact that these are land typed also means they trigger domain, or enable domain, should I say. These are really good. They're going to be very strong for Commander. They're going to be good in any format where domain decks are strong, because you can fetch them on end step and similar. I'll talk more about these in an extensive video because I think they deserve more than a couple minutes. Either way, love them, they're great. No more lies, which reminds me of this line from Auntie Donna's Big Old House of Fun. No more lies! 2 mana, counter target spell unless its control pays 3, so this is just Mana Leak. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So it's Mana Leak that's more restrictive in cost because it's red, blue, and white, but exiles the card as well, giving that extra like hate to stop the card having recursion if it has flashback, for example. I will never be able to cast this card or have it cast against me without thinking of the line "No More Lies" from Auntie Donna, and then also like I let you drum on my penis, which is a line that he says later.
I let you drum on my penis.
The fact that Mana Leak is back in Standard and into Pioneer with an upside is super interesting. I think the card art's really cool too, but ultimately I'm not much of a blue-white control player these days, so it doesn't really titillate my dick like other cards do. Izoni, Center of the Web, is a 6 mana 5/4 with Menace. It's an elf detective, and whenever Izoni, Center of the Web enters the battlefield or attacks, you may collect evidence 4, so you can exile cumulative 4 CMCF cards from your graveyard. If you do, create 2/2/1 black and green spider creature tokens with Menace and Reach. And if you sacrifice 4 tokens, you can surveil 2 and draw 2 cards, then gain 2 life. Yeah, it's a lot of text for a thing that makes some tokens and then gives you a payoff for having lots of tokens. It's not as cool as the old Izoni. I'll pass. Judith, Carnage Connoisseur is a 5 mana 3/4 human shaman legendary creature that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, which is already interesting, we've got a red-black spellslinger commander here. That spell gains Death Touch and lifelink, or you create a 2/2 red imp that when that imp dies, it does 2 damage to each opponent. So it does 2 things. Firstly, I've seen people complain that this is not in Rakdos's like identity. Bollocks. Making a body you can sacrifice to ping all your opponents is absolutely part of the old Rakdos sack and fuck thing. Secondly, the other bit, spells gain Death Touch and lifelink. The lifelink feels weird in a red-black card. But either way, your 1 damage pingers like End the Festivities, that deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control, will wrath the board. It'll be a one-sided wrath, by the way, because it doesn't hit your own stuff. If you want to look to use just general cheap deal 1 damage to everything spells, you're going to have to give Judith Indestructible before you do so, because giving them Death Touch and then pinging herself will kill her too. So some Darksteel plate, or the is it Mithril Cloak that was from Lord of the Rings? That was like a strict upgrade to Darksteel plate. Play that as well. The lifelink is also super interesting. We've seen this on like, was it the red-white Minotaur commander that could do this? Soul Snag, and I can't remember the name. We're not going to put it on screen. People in the comment section can guess what the fuck I'm talking about. Either way, the lifelink on a black-red does feel weird, but being able to like gain a shit ton of life over a Blasphemous Act or a Comet Storm seems pretty hot. This is an interesting commander. I like it a lot. Kellan, the main character that's being forced upon us, which is Oko's son, gets Oko's colors. His adventure side this set is 2 mana, investigate, you may play an additional land this turn, so it's like a weird explorer growth spiral at sorcery speed. His other side is 4 mana, flying, vigilance, and whenever he attacks, drop the 1 target artifact. If you control that permanent, draw a card. So you can like cheaply blow up your clues to draw cards, or you can destroy other people's stuff like kind of like a Trigon Predator, but better. Strong card, I wouldn't build a commander around it. Krenko is back, and he's the Baron of Tin Street, and he's looking pretty posh. He's a 3 mana 3/3 goblin with haste this time. And tap, sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on each goblin you control. Whenever an artifact is put into the graveyard from battlefield, you may pay red. If you do create a 1/1 red goblin creature token, it gains haste until end of turn. Basically, Krenko isn't your token commander anymore, or a token strategy enabler. He's instead a token payoff, where he covers your creatures with counters. He can make 1/1s himself, obviously, when you sack artifacts, so he plays into the clue mechanics of the set. Yeah, I like this a lot. It plays quite well with Crime Novelist, a card that I'm doing an entire video on because it's such a powerful and interesting commander card, where if you're sacking tokens, like clues for example, Crime Novelist will just give you a red mana to pay into Krenko's ability. Yeah, I like it. I like that they took Krenko in a different direction. I don't think we needed a third one that just makes a shit or boatload of tokens. That's absolutely fine. This Krenko is sick. Will I put it into Perforos? I think I will. I think the idea of sacking like my Ichor Wellspring or whatever that I play in that deck to put counters on all my goblins and similar seems pretty strong. This is going straight into Perforos, God of the Goblins. Karlov's Visionary Inventor is a 7-mana 4/4 with Menace, Ward 2 and Haste. Yep, that's right. There's 3 keywords on another card in this set. Okay, whatever. Whenever Karlov's Visionary Inventor attacks, sacrifice any number of other creatures, then exile the top X cards of your library where X the total power. You may cast any number of instants or sorcery cards from among the exile cards without paying the mana cost. So essentially this is a protected version of the old Nar set. You're losing out on white, but you are gaining Ward 2. And old Nar set used to dig 4 deep. Karlov's can dig X deep, where X is the number of tokens you sacrificed. I say tokens, sorry, it's actually creatures. When I first read this, I thought it was tokens, so you can sacrifice clues. It's actually just creatures, so not tokens. I actually don't think this is as good as old Narset. Having haste is very, very good. Obviously, old Narset didn't have that. Having menace making it harder to block, and having ward makes it better protected. But you have to work quite hard to get the dig deep, where Narset just digs 4 deep every time. And Narset can cast Omniscience and similar, like any non-creature spell, where Karlov can only cast instants and sorceries. I think he's going to be strong. I think it's a powerful effect just by virtue of how the old Narset decks used to play, but I think old Narset is probably better. Melek Reforged Researcher is a 5-mana weird detective with a star power and toughness, because it's equal to twice the number of instants and sorcery cards in your graveyard, so similar to old Crackman Drake style thing, and the first instant sorcery spell you cast each turn is 3 less to cast. So he's a mythic that's looking to reduce the cost of your extra turn spells probably, and then beat down as he gets bigger and bigger. Little bit unexciting for a 5-mana mythic in blue-red if I'm honest. And then Massacre Girl, mythic 4-mana 4/4 menace. Creatures you control have Wither. Oh baby, that's a throwback to Shadowmoor. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw a card. So Wither is that damage is now dealt in the form of -1/-1 counters to creatures. So like damage basically sticks to creatures and shrinks them. And that enables our second ability, because all the creatures that your opponent has will die at toughness less than 1 if it's due to combat damage. It won't if you kill them with removal spells and they're still big. But dying combat will allow you to draw cards. I think this is a deeply unique and interesting magic card. The fact that it allows you to draw cards and buffs your creatures in some perceivable way is interesting. I don't know how I like it as a mono black commander. I guess her second ability does trigger if their toughness is less than 1 if you were to stab them to death with Old Massacre Girl or Black Sun Zenith or Toxic Deluge. All of those things do the same thing, but they're very hard to keep her around in when you're doing that as well, because she'll die to those effects. I like her a lot. I won't be building her though. I guess she's probably one of the 99 more so than the commander. So that's it. That's what we've seen so far from Murders at Karlov Manor. I say that, there's a lot of other cards, but I talked about the ones that I thought were interesting. If there's anything I've missed that you think is truly unique, let me know. If there's something that I've not quite understood in terms of power level, again, let me know. Comment down below. Unfortunately, I read them all and it has a real big effect on my mental health and I shouldn't do it, but I do it anyway. So comment down below and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now, fuckheads.